All right, a few days ago, I went to Boss Barbell in Mountain View, California to see Dan Green speak along with Brandon Lilly. Unfortunately, Brandon Lilly couldn't be there, and I was kind of disappointed. Wanted to see him. It would have been cool. That dude's a real cool guy as well. But I wanted to go over kind of the first part of the seminar and kind of give you audio and video format of kind of what I learned in the seminar. And this is related to a blog post, which I'll put in the description in case you prefer to read or read faster and you just want to get cliff notes or maybe have something to refer to. But I'll just start by saying that he talked a lot about the SAID principle, and he mentioned it a lot. It's a personal training thing. If you study personal training, specific adaptation to impose demand, it's really important that you realize that you're going to get good at whatever you train at, which is obviously obvious. It's obvious. But however you're going to squat, however you're going to deadlift, however you're going to bench in competition for powerlifting is the way that you need to train. It's a little bit, it's similar, but not quite the same as just building pure strength. You need to be more specific. You must practice rigorously the exact manner in which you will squat, bench, and deadlift in competition. So that's what I wrote in the blog post. He goes over these three things, which is skill, variety, and volume. And when you're doing a lot of skill stuff, typically you're not going to be doing a whole lot of volume, or I should say not volume, variety. So let me say that again. So it's skill, variety, and volume. So he interlaces those three things. So when he's working on strength or building his strength and trying to put on muscle mass and size, you're doing a lot of variety and volume and still doing skill. Think of skill as just the actual competition lifts and the exact way you're going to lift. And then when you're getting close to competition for a powerlifting meet, you're going to be doing more of your skill work, and you're going to, meaning the exact lifts more often and regularity to kind of build up for the meet. And then the other stuff like the variety and volume, well, volume will vary, but variety will definitely decrease. So those are the variables. Another concept that he has mentioned is a strength phase. During the strength phase, this is where you're just building raw strength, and you're doing a lot more variety, because variety will allow you to get stronger, because it allows you to train your muscles in a different way and allows you to get stronger in different lifts. Just as an example, if you've never done wide bar bench press, and I've never really done it, and it's been a really long time, I'm going to be able to build lots of strength in the wide bar bench press. And later on, when I kind of build my skill back up into the standard bench press, it's going to carry over later. And it's understanding that using variety and volume as a way to kind of build yourself up is really important when you're trying to put on muscle mass and build strength for the competition lifts. Of course, you know, even in the strength phase, you'll still be doing competition lifts, which is the main lift, but you're just trying to put a lot more emphasis on just trying to build raw strength. Just get a good solid base. And usually for a lot of people who are beginners, who are just getting used to lifting heavy, it's really just focused on building that strength base if you don't already have one. He mentioned linear progression a lot, and that's what he really focuses on, is just linear progression, just increasing the weight every single week, getting stronger every week. And that just makes a lot of sense. And kind of the split that he sets up, or kind of his recommendations for split as the base foundation of the program he suggested, was Mondays were squat days, back squat, low bar, and high bar. Wednesdays were front squat days. Thursday were like military press, shoulders, kind of a bodybuilder day. Friday was deadlifts, like block pulls, deficit deadlifts. And then Sunday was bench press, pause bench, touch and go, the varieties of different bench press, speed bench. And so Tuesday and Saturday were the days that he took off, or at least the one that he recommended in the program. And part of what he does is that this is the base, and then whatever you do at the end, after you're doing, you know, for let's say Monday you're doing squats, back squat, and high bar and low bar, what you would do is after you're done with those, you would either do extra work to make sure that you work up your lagging body parts or weaknesses, or that you would call it a day. Like he mentioned something about how he wanted to build his upper back and lower back more. So at the end of each workout, he would do a lot of upper back work and lower back work, which would be a lot of bent over rows. And he said he would do bent over rows like 5 or 6 days a week. And that makes a lot of sense. I mean, whatever you're weak at, you need to train more often, especially if it's a really hindering muscle group. Just as a kind of little quick tip, which is kind of cool, was that a tip for choosing best bench press grip in competition is stronger chest. If you have a strong chest or a big chest, it might make sense for you to go wider to bench the most weight. If you're stronger, if you're strong triceps, it makes sense to go closer. If you're stronger in the shoulders, it makes sense to kind of take a neutral grip, or a grip that's in between those two. I thought that was kind of like a nice little tidbit that I can share with you guys, because it was kind of like, you know, I can title this best grip for a bench press. And you know what? It's going to be different for everybody. And this is like a good way to kind of tailor an individual viewpoint when you're trying to improve your strength and lifting for powerlifting or just general strength for yourself. He also, another thing that was pretty cool he talked about, which I've heard before, but never, which is something I always do all the time, but it's called technical max. What is your technical max? So when you're trying to build yourself up and you find yourself kind of being stuck, it's always a good idea to kind of take a step back, work on your form, and stick to your technical max. Like for example, for my squat, my technical max is around, or it's actually within a range in my opinion, but that's how I interpret it. It's somewhere between 315, 320 to 365, 375. My official max I've actually ever done was 375 for a squat. And the reason why is I have this very weak upper torso, or not weak, but I just have trouble keeping it up. So learning that skill is really important. But training myself in a way where I'm really focused on keeping my form as precise as possible and just training within that limits. So that way my squat doesn't turn into a good morning. And that's essentially what it is when you're talking about a squat. Your technical max is right around there. His approach to volume was, there's a specific, his percentage of targets, or he has a certain amount of workload he wants to do for the day. Of course, every single week is going to increase every week. Or not workload, but amount of weight he's going to lift. So that way he gets stronger, and that's kind of what you should do for yourself. Try to increase the weight every week for what you can. And if you are able to build strength faster and you feel good that day, you'll do more work. You'll do more volume. Let's say you're going to do, like for example, today I did some squats. I hit a PR. I did 5 sets. I did I did 5 sets of 2 reps with 375 pounds, and I freaking did awesome. And then I felt pretty good, but not good enough to do more weight. And I did a few more squats, like a few drop sets, just to kind of work on more technique and get more reps in. But I called it a day. If I was feeling better, I would have added. I would have done more sets of 5, get more volume work in. But that's his idea, is like, you're just going to work on 2 to 4 exercises a day. He doesn't really say that, 2 to 4 exercises. He said that actually on his podcast with Mark Bell. But you just essentially go to the gym when you're doing powerlifting to really focus on the lift you're trying to get better at, so that you can build strength and you can build muscle and you can get better at the lift. I wrote down here, the program outlined above is just a base for how it goes. All right, I said that already. The last thing about volume was an example of how he gave on the bench press. This was pretty cool. What Dan Green said was that, if I'm doing sets of reps of bench press with 400 pounds and I start to get tired and have to go down to 300 pounds, then get tired and have to do 200 pounds, at what point does a 200 pound bench press going to improve my 500 plus pound bench? At that point, I'm basically just fucking around. So he calls it a day. So I thought that was pretty cool. It's a kind of a different viewpoint, not different viewpoint, but sort of an obvious viewpoint that's pretty simple to look at. You're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Why would you do a bunch of, if your goal is to improve strength, why would you drop the weight? But it's a little overgeneralized, because I like doing drop sets, but that's just kind of a way of viewing things, of whether or not you're making the best use of your time and maximize your own personal training for yourself. And I wrote some other notes down, but that's kind of only the first part here. I got some other cool stuff. I'm going to talk about the squat and bench press. If you want to take a look in the description, I have a link to my raw notes that I took at the event, that I'm essentially kind of making these blog posts and videos based on. And if you haven't listened to Dan Green's podcast interview with Mark Bell, I'll put that link in the description. It is a freaking awesome interview. You'll get some great stuff out of it. And just take a look at it. So anyways, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I'm really loving this stuff. I'm really getting into this whole powerlifting thing and getting stronger and building muscle. And this is my thing. I got about 4 weeks to my first meet in Vacaville. So anyways, thanks for watching, and click like if you haven't already, and if you're not already a subscriber, subscribe to support my channel.